In this lesson, we will add bones for the character's toes. What we can do first is go ahead and drop the size of our foot bones. That way we can easily create toe bones without having to worry about selecting between the two chains. So here's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and grab our ankle bone, the one that we'll skin to, BNL ankle. We could head over to our modify panel, and here's where we can start to adjust its size by using the width and height. So we can start to drop that down, maybe to about a value of 2 for both. So you can see here how the chain has adjusted. So that's one option. Another way we can do this, and this is for several objects in our selection, to apply this change at the same time, is to go ahead and work with a very basic Mac script. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. What we'll do is go ahead and grab the other bone objects we'll want to resize on both sides. And then we could head over to our script editor. Let's right click at the bottom left hand corner of Max. We'll find Open Listener Window. We'll go ahead and open this up. I'll go ahead and right click in the text field, and I'll choose Clear All. Alright, so all we need to do is type in $, dot, and then following that, the name of the parameter, which was width. And then we want this equal to that same value that we used for the ankle bone, which was 2. I'll go ahead and hold down Control and scroll forward with the middle mouse button to zoom into the text a bit more so you can see exactly what I've typed. So by using the $, again, this is going to help us apply this change to whatever we have selected, as long as those selected objects have this parameter. So now when we hit enter, you can see that the width has changed to 2 on each bone. So we can do the same thing for the height then. We can put $, dot, height, and have that equal to 2. When we hit enter on our number pad, it has been changed. You can see what happens to our nub bones when we start to adjust their size. They start to skew apparently. But this is very simple to adjust. Let's go ahead and do something. Let's take each nub and delete the 2. Now what we could do is go to our foot bone and simply choose Create End, and now we have a refreshed nub. So I find that to be very helpful. Alright, we're ready to go in and start creating toe bones. Let's go ahead and press Alt-W to move over to our left side view. We're going to grab Create Bones, and we'll go ahead and start to create our bone chain. So we'll go ahead and start to just click through until we've managed to create just one chain for our toe. We could always clone this to the other toes. Let's go ahead and take a look. Alright, it might be a good idea to resize these to that same size that we've used already. So grabbing the root bone and its child, we won't worry about the nub. We could always resize it afterwards, or we could always choose Create End. I'll go ahead and right click and choose Open Listener Window. We already have the code we need. So if we were to go ahead and highlight everything here and just press Enter, you'll see that that change has been applied to both objects. Great. And then from here we can get rid of the nub object, go back to the second bone and choose Create End. Alright, let's start moving this in place. We can go ahead and move this over to the left foot, and then we can work on mirroring this over. And I'd like to point out something very important about mirroring our bone objects. So we'll get to that shortly. Let's go ahead and first work on just adjusting these, rotating and moving these over in place. Okay, so there's one object. What I'd like to do is go ahead and use Bone Edit mode. Let's go ahead and grab the nub object and grab our Move tool after that. Now to move locally, we could always set our coordinate system at the top to local. Great, so we'll go ahead and pull this out so that the nub is right at the nail. Alright, great. We can go ahead and start to take a look at the next bone object. Now I might go ahead and pull this down a bit so it has the right pivot point. That looks good. All right, we can exit bone edit mode. And now to clone this chain, we can simply double click on the root to grab all bone objects. And then we can go ahead and press Control V to clone this. Let's make this a copy, and we'll choose OK. And now it's just a matter of translating this over. Beautiful. All right, so from here, we can go ahead and start to adjust this chain. We can go ahead and start to rotate a bit, just slightly, not much at all. Then what I'd like to do is go ahead and adjust the nub object, again, so it's right at the nail. We'll choose Bone Edit Mode. We'll grab our Move tool. We'll move this down locally so it's right in place. Great. That looks pretty good. If you need to, go ahead and press F3 just so we can go back to our textured mode. And this will help us make sure that this bone has been placed in the right spot. So it looks like here we'll need to just translate it back a bit more. I think that this is just fine. Alright, so I'll press F3 again to go back to wireframe mode. Alright, great. So it's now time to create another bone object for the last toe. So let's say we go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and grab our bone objects here. I'll go ahead and exit bone edit mode. We'll press Control V, make these copies. Now let's go ahead and just slide this chain over. I'm going to grab the root and just rotate it in place. You can see it's a bit of back and forth work, just making sure that we've managed to place this bone object successfully inside of this last toe. And you can see how kind of tricky it is because it's smaller than the others. So what we may have to do here is we may have to go ahead and get rid of our nub, of course, but looking at this last bone object, it might not be needed necessarily. We might be able to turn this into a nub. So if we were to go ahead and duplicate it, we can go ahead and grab this root bone and choose Create End, and there we have it. Let's go ahead and choose Bone Edit Mode, and we'll go ahead and move this nub down locally. Beautiful. All right, so we have our toe bones in place. What we could do is work on renaming them now. So here's the naming convention we'll use. Starting with this bone object here, we could always go ahead and name this BN L toe, and then we can name these alphabetically. So this we can call toe A underscore A 01. So what this means is that this is the initial toe bone of this foot, and this is the root bone because we've given it a suffix of A01. So the following one would be B01, and then our nub would be BE, and of course C01. So what I'll do is pause the video and get the others renamed, and when I come back you'll take a look at the naming convention that I've used and see if that will work for you. Alright, so each bone object has now been renamed. So this last one here, I've named toe CA, and the nub of course would be toe CB with a prefix of BE. And the one that is next to the chain that we started with, that's toe B. Alright, so really straightforward. Now, before we are ready to link this to our chain here and go ahead and move this across to the opposite side, let's go ahead and talk about something. Eventually we'll create a foot roll rig. What that means is that as we start to rotate this foot bone, it's going to drive the roots of each toe here in a way where it'll make sure that the toes roll naturally as the foot rolls. Now as of right now, you can see how the pivot points of these two bone objects are not aligned to our foot bone. So what we might get is a bit of pulling around this area, and it's going to look a little bit wonky when we start to see those deformations. So what we could always do is use Bone Edit Mode to fix this. Let me go ahead and show you how. What we'll do is go ahead and head over to our Create panel. We'll choose Helpers, and we'll create another point helper. Let's go ahead and just add it to the scene. We'll right-click to exit the tool. And now let's press Alt-A, and that's going to enter us into Align mode. And we can align in more than just position this way. We can align in orientation and scale. Let's go ahead and click on our foot bone here. Take a look at the top. We can choose what axis we'd like to align in. So I'll go ahead and check all three position and rotation axes. We'll go to now choose OK. All right, beautiful. You'll see that it's at the center of the bone object. If that happens, no worries. Simply press Alt-A, click on the bone object again, and make sure that instead of sensors being checked, we have pivot point checked. So now when we choose OK, you can see it has been aligned to the pivot point of that object. Now here's what we want to do. Staying in local mode, what we want to do is just go ahead and move this object over to the bone that we'd like to adjust. So there's one. I'll head over to the Modify panel just to adjust its size, bring it down a little bit more to about a value of 2. And then holding down Shift, we can go ahead and drag out locally in the Z-axis to create a copy of this so we can go ahead and use it for the next bone object. Very nice. So what we can do at this point is go ahead and work with Bone Edit mode to move our bone object to this pivot point here of our helper. So we could start to just kind of translate that forward in the x-axis. I'm not going to snap to that helper simply because we want to make sure that we're moving down this bone object locally. We don't want to add any weird slants or anything like that. It's very easy to do in Bone Edit mode. So we're just using the helper as a guide to get close to where we need to be. And that is going to give us some great results. So I'll go ahead and exit Bone Edit mode. We can go ahead and grab our two helpers, and we can now go ahead and remove them. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at what happens when we link our bone objects and then try to mirror them across. Alright, so what I'll do is go ahead and grab our root bones for toe A and toe B. Let's grab our link tool, and we're going to go ahead and link over to our foot bone. Beautiful. So as we start to rotate the foot bone, our toes follow. Now, this last bone here, toe C, well, this should be linked to our ankle. Should follow with it. All right, great. So once that's been done, let's go ahead and now mirror our chains across. I'll press the Q key to go to our select tool. We'll go ahead and grab all three of our roots, and let's go ahead and hold down Control and press Page down to grab the entire hierarchy of each chain. So now we can go ahead and work with our mirroring tool. Let's go ahead and start to use the offset. All right, great. So you can see how everything's kind of sliding over really well when we choose OK. When we start to grab at our bone objects, you'll notice how they're still a part of the hierarchy that we have linked them under. So very important here, in order to make sure that they are no longer a part of that hierarchy, we need to go ahead and break that link. So in order to do so, it's just a matter of choosing Unlink Selection. Let's go ahead and grab each root object of each chain that we've mirrored, and we'll choose Unlink. Now when we start to grab one bone object and we start to pull it, notice it has been separated. All right, so very important, something to keep in mind. We don't want to neglect that. All right, so we can kind of just move our bone objects in place here. Great, and this looks really nice. So now it's just a matter of linking to the bone that they need to be connected to. And then we can make sure that each of these are frozen by grabbing our thighs, pressing Control Page down to grab our entire hierarchy. We can now press Alt and right click and choose Freeze Transform. Beautiful stuff. So we've managed to create our leg chains. Now it's time to move to the upper body. We can start to work on the torso in the following lesson.